Here we are today with News and Views with the Mayor. I'm Harvey Persons, Mayor of the City of Douglasville. Today we're going to be talking to you about emergency preparedness. We're going to talk about the two events we've already had in January, February of this year that really were snow events and kept a lot of you at home. So we have a panel of guests with us today. We have Jason Millholland, who is the Emergency Preparedness Director. We have Mr. Greg Roberts, who is the Maintenance and Sanitation Director for the City of Douglasville. And we have our Chief of Police, Chris Womack. All three experts in their fields as it relates to public safety and emergency preparedness. So stay tuned. We're going to be talking about how you, our viewers, can be prepared for upcoming events that are emergency events within our community.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know wherever you are.
Here we are today with News and Views with the Mayor. I'm Harvey Persons, Mayor of the City of Douglasville. And today we're here to talk about emergency preparedness in the upcoming winter season. We have three experts with us today who are truly experts in their individual fields as it relates to public safety, emergency preparedness, and being prepared for the upcoming winter season. We have with us today Mr. Jason Millholland, who is the Emergency Management Director with our E911 Center. We have Mr. Greg Roberts, who is our Maintenance and Sanitation Director with the City of Douglasville. And we have our Chief of Police, Chris Womack, with us today. And certainly glad to have all three of you here because, like I said, truly, these three individuals are truly professionals in their individual fields, and we feel very fortunate to have them here in Douglasville and in our community to help us with emergency preparedness and emergency response to help you, our community, have a safe community and to take care of our citizens. But before we do that, let me talk a little bit about the weather. I've been told that in Chicago already they've had a snowfall the first week of October. Think about that. They say that it's the earliest snowfall that we've had in Chicago since World War II. And I'm hearing all kind of stories from the Farmer's Almanac and all kind of predictions about the potentially bad weather that we're going to have this season. So what we want to do is talk a little bit about that today and give our viewers some tips on what they can do to be prepared. But before we do that, let's talk about last year to kind of bring us up to this year. January and February of last year, we had some of the worst weather we've had in a good while and even shut the streets down. So let's start with Jason. Jason, because I think as the emergency response center, y'all usually maybe start getting the weather forecast and hearing some of that information to begin with. How do you get that out to the community and some of our emergency responders? What do y'all do to start getting ready for this?
We get briefings from the National Weather Service based out of Peachtree City, which is our local National Weather's office. As we get that information in, we start distributing it out so people can start, usually about 7 days out, we'll start getting indications that there may be something coming. Mm-hmm. So when we get that, we start passing on the information to all the departments and with the city and the county, and the school systems can start looking at if this does occur, what can we do to make a less of an impact on the citizens and our constituents.
Now this is an exact science. We know exactly when, where, and what time all this is going to happen, right?
No, sir. It changes. It changes before that 7 days. It may go from from one end to the other. But it always, that lead time gives you time to start thinking about, okay, what can we do if this does occur, or if it's worse, or of course if it's better than what they're predicting, it's all good. I'm always happy. I do not complain about that.
Right.
But okay, when they start giving you the worst case scenarios, okay, what can we do if this does happen this way? What things do we need to have in place so everyone can react accordingly?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. That's something that we saw in January of this year, and I jokingly said it's an exact science, but we all know that it's not. Weather prediction is not an exact science, and sometimes it can change even hourly. So, Greg, tell us a little bit about what happened with the city of Douglasville and the streets in January when we had the little weather event, and how quickly all that came into play and what happened.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. And as we all know, we had two separate events 2 weeks apart. Both came in on a Tuesday, but they were light years in difference by way of, on Tuesday, January 27th, it came in around 10, 11 o'clock. Started off as a light snow, looked like no big deal. We've had that many times in our lifetimes. But by 12:30, it was coming down pretty good. Roads were becoming difficult to pass. Unfortunately, a lot of the businesses in the Atlanta area had not closed down early enough, because as you might, and many times we forget the reports versus the actual that we dealt with, but the reports were telling us it was going to be 2 to 4 inches in the Macon area. We were going to get anything from a trace to a couple of inches. Mm-hmm. That changed in a matter of a few hours, and that line was a little more north, and we got a little quicker than we thought. And then, as you recall, the temps fell into the 20s that night. But by 3 o'clock on Tuesday, January 27th, streets became impassable for two reasons. Folks started getting off work. Schools were instantly thrown out, so to speak. And so you had buses on the road, cars on the road, traffic jams, and public works departments such as the city of Douglasville, Douglas County, even the Georgia Department of Transportation. It wasn't a matter of not having manpower and resources. You couldn't get there. We had trucks. I had a sand truck on Hospital Drive that sat there for 2 hours. Not because he was having lunch, he couldn't go nowhere.
So what happened then is we had gridlock.
Absolutely.
And traffic couldn't move. And so how does that impact public safety, Chief? What did you see, and what did the city experience then as far as traffic, congestion, and even crime, if you will?
Yeah, that event that we experienced back in January was undoubtedly one of the most unique situations that we've been faced with in most of our time at the police department. Within a couple of hours of the event starting, we started having deserted cars left in the roadway. It was almost like a war zone, which created a whole new set of problems just because we didn't have enough records within our county to respond to all the calls that we had there. And then during that time, the roads had worsened so much that a lot of people had gotten stranded in their cars if they didn't desert their cars. So we immediately had to start assessing what we prioritized and the calls that we answered, like folks that had medication that they were out of, that they desperately had to need life-saving medication, people that had to get to the hospital. We were dealing within a couple hours some situations, like I said, that we'd never trained for, to be honest with you, and really kind of caught us off guard. But we adapted quickly. One of the things that we were faced with in law enforcement was we had our schools. We had a lot of schools that still had students in them. Their parents simply could not get to them. So as you know, that night we spent throughout the night, it took us till probably somewhere about 10 o'clock the next morning to finally have our schools cleared out and getting our kids home safe. And and that, as far as a reward in law enforcement, that was a very memorable night for me, because there's nothing more special to take these kids that are kind of anxious about, they know it's dark, they know they ain't still supposed to be at school, but when you get them home and mama's standing on the porch with that light on and gets her babies back, that was a night I'll never forget getting to be a part of.
Well, now, Chief, it's my understanding you got home probably about 6 o'clock that night and got all tucked in, snuggled in, went to sleep about 6 that night. Is that right?
It was pretty much an all hands on deck, and we've got a great team over at the police department. Everybody pitched in, doing what they could, giving what they could to make sure that we could take care of as many people as we could, as efficiently as we could.
I say that, I want to make sure our viewers know that, and they noticed I punched the chief. I know better, because I'm going to, as we move into this, I'm going to tell a little bit about all three of these individuals and some of the things that they've done and did during these events to help our community be safe. I know the chief was out there till probably 2, 3 o'clock that morning. I think you took the last child home about 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock that night. But not only the chief, but all of the police department rallied, some of them in their own personal vehicles, to get kids home, get them safely to their parents. And the ones that were not able to do it, the police department provided security for the schools where there still were kids. And as a matter of fact, it's my understanding that they had set up over at the admin building over at the Board of Education. Superintendent was there monitoring that, and just a great job was done by everybody. I know, Jason, you didn't get a whole lot of sleep during that period in time. I know Mr. Roberts had some personal difficulties going on with family and some folks that were in the hospital, but spent countless hours working to ensure that our community stayed safe. The roads were cleared. Jason, as far as the communications efforts at the 911 center, and then the chief, as well as his department and the officers that not only put their own individual safety on the line to help with our community and make sure that the roads were clear and safe. So tremendous amount of effort went into that first event. So we know.
Could I make one comment on that,
Sure,
Mayor? You know,
sure.
one thing while we're talking about that with everybody sitting around doing what we do for the community is to remind our viewing audience about the sacrifices our families make when, you know, there's emergencies all over Douglasville. We got emergencies at our own house, but sometimes they have to understand we've got to step up and do our job to take care of everybody else, you know, once, you know, we feel like we got them as best we can. And, hat goes off because a lot of families that support law enforcement and public safety and EMA, you know, they had to get put on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was something I was going to talk about even more once we got into then the February event. Talk about some of the preparedness, some of the things that we learned from that January event. Then, 2 weeks later, we went into the February event. So let's talk a little bit, Jason, on the emergency preparedness side, the communication side, some of the things that we did that we were a little more prepared come February, because certainly January was a quick event. We were caught off guard a little bit, but we did a lot of talking, training in between, not knowing 2 weeks later we're going to have another event. So tell us a little bit about the communication side and the emergency response portion that you're responsible for. What did we do?
Well, a lot of times people, I send stuff out all the time on the weather and stuff like that, depending on what event it is, whether it's tornadic, severe thunderstorms, or winter weather. And sometimes, almost been accused of cry wolf, but I want to make sure everybody has the information that we're getting in, they're getting to process it. Because that event was so quickly after that one, everybody was on guard and everybody was on attention, everybody. You didn't have people on the roads. That was one of the biggest things. If we can keep people off the roads, we're a lot better. We can get the emergency preparedness vehicles and Department of Transportation vehicles through the bad stuff if the roads aren't blocked with other vehicles. Even if they got trees down, we can get stuff to push them out. So in our area, is keeping everybody off the road so we can take care of what we got, because we don't have the amount of equipment they have in northern states, or it's just not economically feasible because of the how often we have this to spend that kind of money, where they can have 3 days of snow and never miss a lick.
Right.
But by keeping people, get that information out to the public and everybody make that decision to, okay, I'm not going to go in today. We're going to stay home today, and that helps us do our job. And that's the biggest. So getting that information out early and accurate as possible, people can make that decision. And encouraging people at their homes, do you have water? If your pipes freeze, Do you have bottled water there? You know, you need 1 gallon per person per day for at least 3 days. And just those preparedness, home preparedness things they can do to take care of themselves.
Right. Well, that was the thing. We had the January 28th event. 2 weeks later, then we had the next event. But that's the thing that we had that opportunity then to prepare for that we didn't back in January. But we had learned a lot. We learned a lot about the preparedness and talking with people, our emergency response center, the local city TV group, the county TV group, school system. There were a lot of people then that collaborated to pull together that communications effort and push that information out. Then in doing that, our citizens were a tremendous help and asset because they heeded that advice, they heeded that information, they stayed home, they stayed off the streets. So then, Greg, was it a little easier then to get out there and address the streets, get them sanded, salted, and make them passable much quicker?
Absolutely. As the three of us talked back at that time, I'll take the second one over the first one any day because it came in overnight. So it sort of forced folks, including my own family, to make the right decision on the second one, because when you woke up that Wednesday morning, you were probably not going to drive. But one thing I would like to point out to the listeners, if they would go and Google Ready, Georgia, if they'll Google Ready, Georgia, I mean, I preach this all the time, even to my friends and my family. On Ready, Georgia, there are kits there that you can click on, and it'll just tell you things that you really need. Even if you live here in Douglasville, Douglas County, and you work in Atlanta or 30 minutes away, you need to keep a bag in your car.
Exactly.
And it would take up our entire time to just talk about those things. But if you go to Ready, Georgia, if you'll Google Ready, Georgia, they'll give you some advice of things to keep on your personal vehicle, then things to have at home. Because you could get stuck at home. Some of us remember, I remember in the early 70s, when we had one of the worst ice storms to ever hit the South, probably in 100 years or more, that we know anything about. And the South, this part of Georgia, Douglas, Carroll, Haralson County, Paulding County, we were in an ice box for probably the better part of a week.
73.
No power, no water. I mean, I remember living in the country, and we had a pump with a well, but we didn't have it that week.
Right. Well, this is not about, and that's not what we're here for today, and it's not a doom and gloom story, but it's to talk about and learn from our past experiences. Yes. Certainly we can all remember the January and February event of last year. We certainly learned some very valuable things to it. The community pulled together collaboratively and got us through it. But we want to learn from that and be better prepared for potentially whatever the next events may be, whether it be weather or any other emergency situation. So, Chief, we'll go then to public safety and being prepared. When we got into the February event, we had a little bit more time, set up the command center at the public safety building, as well as the emergency preparedness center there off of Fairburn Road. And then you talk about the sacrifices that everybody's families made. I know that there were people that were there at the 911 center that stayed for almost 3 days. We had people at the public safety facility. I know that the county, the SO, Sheriff's Department had people there at the jail that stayed. And in the meantime, the families of our emergency responders and people that were looking out for the public safety of our community, you had to make sure that your families were taken care of and hunkered down, but then you came in and stayed overnight for up to 3 days to take care of the public safety of our community. And I think that that's something that the viewers need to be aware of, because there's a lot of sacrifices that are made by y'all, and we really can't repay you enough but to say thank you. Tell us a little bit about the public safety aspects of it, if you would, Chief. What usually happens during an event like this, and how can citizens take and best be prepared?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, one of the things that I think you can is get on a heightened alert of a state of readiness, to start paying attention to, we heavily use at the police department social media. And we've gotten a lot of compliments on that, because we're able, through 911, through the emergency broadcast centers. They get those messages emailed out to us quick, so we can just basically cut and paste the most current, accurate information that we're dealing with out to the masses so that they can have and try to make an informed decision. And you know, and I'm one of those people that believe, you know, you prepare for the worst but pray for the best. I know going into that second one, I felt a lot more comfortable that regardless of what happened, because we had been working for 2 weeks, it had been a hot topic, and we were just ready prepared. Mother Nature helped us with the timing of the event, but you know, it's a learning process on some of this stuff as we go through it. One thing that we've done at the police department, specifically in the area of public safety, is we realized, and I had let our four-wheel drive fleet dwindle down at the police department. So that's where we got into the realm of, you know, unfortunately, use some POVs to get the job done.
Personal owned vehicles.
Yes, personally owned vehicles, and you know, and that's not really what you want to be put in. So went out through asset forfeiture. We purchased 3 four-wheel drive pickup trucks, and you know, had some questions about them. But you know, the reason for that is we need those vehicles. We need those in our fleet. Not only are they very dependable and they last a long time, but they're also four-wheel drive vehicles that are heavy-duty vehicles. 2 of them are equipped. We put big winches on the front of them, and that will be such an asset for some of these minders, people slipping off in the ditch, where we don't have to wait on one of our towing services that we use here in the county. We get them out of the service, get them back in service and on their way to help our citizens that way as well. So, you know, and I can't say enough about when these events happen is how important communication is and how much we as a family pull together in public service and communicate with each other. I know during both of the events, we were back and forth between 911, back and forth between streets and sanitation. I was out on the road with Greg and, you know, helping them. And one thing I would stress to our community too is when you see, even though it may not be one of those, you know, a tan sheriff's department's car or a black and white police car, if it's somebody in public safety, and this event being like with Greg Roberts out there directing traffic, you need to pay attention to them. Right. Because they're there for a reason. They're trying to take everybody's safety and concern, and you know, and try to be patient, because this can and will happen again. You know, everybody's got places they need to be, but the main thing is you just got to stay calm, cool, collected, take the information we're putting out there, and remain patient.
Thank you. As we get ready to close, one of the things I'd like to say in closing is to ensure and really let our viewers know that you live in a great community and you have tremendous assets and resources in the emergency responders and the people that we depend on to take care of the life safety issues in our community. We don't have the Sheriff's Department here. We don't have the Douglas County Fire Department here, but they also are very valuable assets in that collaborative effort of working together. And that's what makes a community great, is everybody pulling together, working together. Sometimes we have disagreements. We don't always see eye to eye on certain things, but when things get tough, we pull together, work together, and make this the great community that it is. One of the things you said, Chief, is to be prepared for the worst, but pray for the best. And that's what this program really is about today. Talk a little bit about the 2 events we've had last year, to then talk about being prepared for future events. We would like to hope that they wouldn't happen, but more than likely we'll have some kind of emergency event that we all have to pull together and get the job done. And our viewers out there played a huge part in that second event as far as pulling together, staying at home, but not only in the first event. Certainly there were a lot of people that couldn't get home, but you heard a lot of stories about people working together, pulling together, opening their homes, getting people home, and that speaks volumes about the community that we have. So in closing, I want to thank each one of you for the great job that you do. Really thank some of the folks that aren't here today. We'll get them on at a later time to talk about more about what they do to help our community. But in future events, and there will be events, we will be prepared, this community will be prepared, and we'll all pull together to get the job done.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, Chief, thank
Mayor,
you for being here.
Proud to be here with you,
Mr. Roberts,
Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Mr. Millholland,
Thank you, sir.
thank
Very
you
good
for
seeing
being
you,
here.
Jason.
And it's an honor and a privilege to be able to work with you and watch and see the fine job that you and your families do to protect our community. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a great day and be prepared.